All right, welcome folks, and welcome to our call. We're super excited um, to sync up. It feels like it's been a while since we've had a diamond call. I'm seeing folks calling in from all over. Diane from New York, Victoria in Colorado, where her 2-week stay has extended by a little bit. She's normally in Shenzhen. So welcome. Today we're going to talk about virtual assistants. Many of you already have virtual assistants. Some of you have probably played with the idea of hiring one. We have been using assistants for years, mostly just live in-person assistants, but it's just in the last couple years that we've really caught a vision for what you can do and all the benefits of having a virtual assistant. And so it's just kind of opened the lid to all that's possible. I mean, everything from tracking your rank to tracking your power of 3, to reactivating customers, to doing customer appreciation. There's just so much that's possible with a virtual assistant. And what's great is if we leverage virtual assistants from other places where labor is less expensive, like the Philippines, you can actually have a virtual assistant without having a rock star income. So, even at the platinum diamond levels or sooner, it can start to make a lot of sense to have a virtual assistant. So we want to welcome Jill, who's been one of our main mentors in this space. We decided to spend a couple years making all the mistakes we could with virtual assistants before we met Jill and really engaged her. We could have saved ourselves a lot of time and a lot of pain if we had. Anyways, we're super grateful for Jill because she's saved us a lot of headache, and she's got a lot of great ideas for how to make the most of a VA. So Jill, welcome. How are you doing today? It looks like you're still muted.
I'm muted. Oh.
There we go. Okay. We can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Okay. You can hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Welcome, and how are you today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
So good. So yeah, basically Jill has been managing teams of virtual assistants, training virtual assistants, connecting clients with virtual assistants for, gosh, over a decade now. And she's amazing. Like, she knows all the tools, she knows all the mishaps and mistakes that can be made. So we're really excited that you can join us today and just share with us.
Having me.
Yeah, what's the big deal about VAs and how we can make the best use of them?
Yeah, so am I able to share a slide presentation?
I think so. Do you want to try sharing screen?
Yeah. Okay, then I need to get over. Okay, let's see. You can see all my gajillion tabs. Let me know.
Yep, we can see.
Perfect. Okay. I'm going to go ahead. I hope you guys are all right with me using a slide presentation for a minute. I'm going to come back and forth because I think having me talk to you directly and feel like we're in the same room is going to be maybe a little bit better. But in the beginning, I want to talk about some tips. So I thought a presentation would be good. And just forgive my presentation. I literally pulled it together this morning, and some of the images are just going to be slapped in there with some beautiful fields of lavender. So you're going to be wondering, what does that have to do with the VA? But it's a VA for doTERRA, so I figured it would work. But as Andy said, I have been working with virtual assistants for quite a while now. I'm new to doTERRA, so I've been in doTERRA a little over a year. And before that, and still, I run a public relations agency. And I had met with a sales consultant, and his first question was, why are you doing all of the tasks on your list? And I was a little offended just the way he said it. I was kind of like, what do you mean? Who else is going to do my task? And he said, well, like 3/4 of the tasks that you have could be offloaded to someone else. and then you could be freed up to do your very best work and the things that are really going to move your business forward. And, you know, it wasn't rocket science to me to think of that concept, but I think what was difficult at the time was that I felt like I had so many tasks. Nobody but me could get them done as fast and with as high of quality. Not that I was like some genius or anything, but just I was in my own head and I knew how to do things really fast. And my time was so valuable and I was so busy trying to run everything and keep all these millions of balls in the air that in my head, I just kind of thought, if I stop and try to even remotely offload what's in my head to another person, that is going to cost me so much time. It's not even going to be worth it for me. And he's like, that's awesome that you feel that way. But he said, I challenge you to think a different way and just start writing down all of the tasks that you do. And even maybe start with like, what would you like to get rid of in a perfect world? Like if you didn't have to do these tasks. And so it was easy in the beginning for me to give up a few because I hated them and like data entry type things. But then over time, I have found that I want to give up everything at this point, like anything I possibly can that I don't need to be doing so that I can free myself up to focus on my strengths and do what I do best. And I'm sure that a lot of you would like the same thing, right? When I started talking to doTERRA leaders about working with VAs, I heard the same response from nearly everybody. And this was similar to my response when my consultant first asked me the question. I have so many tasks that I'm doing. I wouldn't even know what to offload. I wouldn't know how to train them, and I don't have time to manage them. And so if you can relate to any of those thoughts, you want an assistant, but you have those thoughts, you want to streamline your business, you want to be more effective, and you want to do the tasks that are best, you know, where you can spend and use your strengths best, then you're in the right place. So let's dive in. First of all, if you have a VA, we're going to start by talking about how best to manage your VA. So let's move. I want to talk, first of all, about the differences between a VA and a personal assistant, because I know that some of you have personal assistants. Personal assistants are so great, but there is a difference between a personal assistant and a VA. For the purposes of this call, we are going to refer to a virtual assistant as a VA. So if I'm using that acronym a lot, just know virtual assistant. And then personal assistants can sometimes be referred to as a PA. And then we're going to go into how to maximize your VA management. Now, this is for those of you who are managing your VA. If you have a personal assistant who would be managing or who is managing your VA, then this section would be for that person. But this is just going to be some helpful tips to help you know how best to manage your VA. And then how to find VAs who know the doTERRA basics. So I'll talk to you at the end about our process for finding, sourcing, and vetting VAs, and then training them on the doTERRA basics so that when you inherit them as a VA, you are walking into a relationship with somebody who already knows, is a seasoned VA, has a college degree, but also knows the basics of doTERRA, so that you're not having to start from the very scratch. I am not sure if we want to do a Q&A kind of along the way, but what I would say is that there's sort of two parts of this presentation. There's the first two bullets where we're going to just be talking basic, like what's a VA and how best to manage him or her. And then the second part is really going into how to find and work with a VA who knows about doTERRA. So if we want to maybe take a little break between those two sections so that I'm not doing all of the talking and you can ask me some questions, I would be happy to hear from you. All right, but let's move forward and get through this first section first so that we can hear from you after that. All right, that is not wanting to move forward. Okay. All right, the differences between VAs and personal assistants. It's taking me a minute before it wants to progress. I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, I'll just do it with my mouse. I'm going to move me over here a little bit. Okay, so with personal assistants, oftentimes, and this is not the end all be all definition of a personal assistant, but for those of you who have an executive or a personal assistant or a secretary, these are some things that I felt really describe that person. Works in close proximity with you. So oftentimes if you have an office, that your personal assistant is actually in your office, in your home, or in your office off-site. And at a minimum, especially in this time of COVID, right, they might be in your same state or country, where you at least have access to them in closer proximity than if they're offshore. So that would be one thing that would set a personal assistant apart from a remote worker. And then also personal assistants, I hear a lot when I talk to people about what does your personal assistant do? Well, they're kind of like in my brain. They anticipate my needs. They can tell me like, oh, I think you should do this. They're really giving ideas. So that's a big difference, is that a personal assistant really does anticipate your needs. They create their own task list often. Now, sometimes you're working together, you're providing them with tasks, and you're brainstorming what tasks should even be accomplished for your business, but they are definitely part of that process. Then they operate with little to no supervision. So they are often running, they're doing their own thing, they're managing themselves, they're coming to you, getting ideas, and you're talking a lot. Like when I'm talking to doTERRA leaders who have personal assistants, they're usually going back and forth in this constant dialogue, almost on Facebook Messenger or Marco Polo. And they're like, really like they're right there. If they're not in their office, then they're right there. Also, that person is going to give you tasks to keep you organized, right? So it's like, hey, here's where you need to be at what time. You have this call with this person. I made these slides for you. Here you go off into that meeting. Personal assistants are great. They don't require much training or instruction or hand-holding because, again, they're really thinking ahead and anticipating things. They're usually a higher level person that's paid quite a bit more than a virtual assistant. And really, they're kind of like a clone of you a little bit. So maybe they have your same strengths, or they might have the flip side of your strengths so that you can operate best together. Now, you might have a lot of other definitions of personal assistants, but this, as I've talked to people over time, kind of breaks it down. So now we have this beautiful lemon picture. I've been like diffusing lemon today. I wanted to put this lemon picture here. It doesn't have anything to do with virtual assistants aside from the fact that they're going to help you with doTERRA, but I thought we would have a positive picture here. So for virtual assistants, and I don't want to say that, I don't want to like stereotype, because my virtual assistants at this point in our working relationship are somewhat in between a virtual assistant and a personal assistant. The longer that someone works with you, the more they can anticipate your needs, the more they know your working style, the more you can work hand in glove, all of those types of things. So I don't want to stereotype, but what you can kind of expect from the beginning of working with a virtual assistant is that they are going to perform assigned tasks. And that means that someone needs to assign them those tasks, right? So when we're working with our virtual assistants, we're giving them a calendar, usually with regular tasks for daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly. And then we fill in the tasks with the things that happen as we go day to day, right? But they are not going to be coming to you like, oh, here's all the tasks that I'm going to be performing from day one. They're really going to look to you for guidance in terms of what those tasks are. And then also, they are going to look to you for training and course correction. And this is where I hear kind of almost the biggest sort of headache or kind of sigh from doTERRA leaders, or any real leaders, to be honest, because training and course correction takes time, right? So if you want your VA to perform a task with excellence, the best thing that you can ever do is train him or her right from the get-go so that they can master the task, obviously with course correction. Maybe you need to work with them 3 or 4 times to get it right, but then they're off to the races. And once they master that task, I can tell you that I have some VAs that I haven't spoken to in like 6 months. Like maybe we're going back and forth a little bit, like on reviews and things like that, but they know their jobs so well and they perform with such high quality that I am just not in their way. I know they're doing their job. Unless I see something really out of the blue, I'm really hardly commenting. I only get involved when they need my review, approval, feedback, or if I see something that needs course correction. And so the longer that you work with your VA, the more that you guys are going to get used to working together, and you won't have to manage as much. But in the beginning, they really are looking for that training, the course correction, until they can get to the point of being able to master the tasks, right? Now, the way they operate the best, again, I don't want to stereotype, but in the beginning, let's just say for any VA, the way that they operate the best is with very clear step-by-step instructions, minimal supervision. Like, they're not wanting you to talk to them every 5 minutes because that's interrupting them. They want to do their tasks, and then schedule tasks in advance if at all possible. So they can plan their week and they can really dig in, dive deep, and start working on those tasks and get through accomplishing a lot. And so it's not that you can't go to them and say, hey, I just had an urgent issue come up. Like, I mean, we know how we are with doTERRA, right? Like, I had this crazy idea like 3 days ago that I wanted to create all of these different kits and these different amounts for every single illness. I mean, we've got some really great things going on in the Philippines right now, which is where I'm growing my team. And I was like, oh, I just want to do like 10 days of social media content. And my VA is like, oh my gosh, like, clear my plate, right? And so, you know, like, doTERRA leaders are infamous for this, right? Like, we just are like, oh, we got this harebrained idea. We're going to like just do this at the last minute. But the great thing about having a schedule in advance is that then when those crazy, awesome ideas come that are helping all of you guys hit your higher and higher ranks, that then your VA can just slide those tasks in between the regular tasks that are really, really important, right? And so you've got these regular tasks that get done that he or she already knows about. And then you've got these periods of time where, oh my gosh, I'm going to do the crazy idea. And then that helps you rank advance. And so everything can get done so that you're not leaving any tasks undone, and your VA can really roll with it. So it's not that they need to be told minute by minute what to do. They'd like to have kind of a schedule in advance, and then tasks as they come. And then the mixture of the two of those is what helps you be the most successful possible. And then they're adept at performing a lot of different tasks. And so this is the great thing. You can hire VAs to be specialists. So I have one VA, for example, and all she does is my social media. And so we put her through social media training. She's getting definitely more up to speed on the various platforms, but that's really her sole task. She's a better writer, and so I just put her on that. But then most of my VAs can perform upwards of 30 to 50 tasks, and I'm literally just picking and choosing, when do I want them to perform what task with what frequency? Is this daily? Is it weekly? Is it monthly or quarterly, annually? Is it every time I get a new enrollee? What is a frequency? And then how much downtime do I have? And then what's my miscellaneous task list that, hey, if you ever find time to knock out these tasks, here's a whole list of tasks in order of priority that I want you to do. So those are the differences between a virtual assistant and a personal assistant. You can see there's some crossover. And for those of you who are working with either and or a personal assistant and or a virtual assistant, you're probably nodding your head or like, oh, it's a little bit different for me. But that's what I find. So now let's move on to talk about how best to maximize your VA when you are the one or your personal assistant is managing. Okay, so up here, I'm sorry, this title is wrong. So let's avoid this title and let's just look at these ways that we can, I have to like keep moving my little so that I can see you guys. Okay, that we can best manage our VA. So first of all, you want to start by really identifying what is the best way that you guys can communicate. So for example, in the Philippines, Facebook is really, really big there. So if you're wanting to do like instant chat, Facebook Messenger is really, really great. They don't really use WhatsApp very much. So for those of you who have teams in other countries where WhatsApp is the thing, they don't really use WhatsApp in the Philippines. And we're just talking about Filipino VAs for a minute. But you're going to want to identify, okay, so for example, the way that I do it, this is my own personal preference with my VAs, is I say, okay, so if I need something that's going to be something that I'm going to need to research later, like a document or a process or something, I want you to email that to me, because I want to make sure that it's going to be in my email search, that I can always find it. If I need a quick response on something, then find me on Facebook Messenger. That's going to be great. If I want to have a conversation about an actual task that we're performing, then I want to have that communication housed within our project management tool, and we use Trello. And so with Trello, you can just have a conversation about the actual task, add attachments or whatever, and you can use whatever project management tool you want. Or if you don't use one, you could just leave notes in Google Docs and things like that. But you're going to want to decide what is the very best way for you to communicate. And then you're going to want to get clarity on your working hours. So with the Philippines, they're either 14 or 15 hours different from US based leaders. And they're ahead of us. And so like, I wake up on Monday morning and I have like all these tasks that have already been accomplished. It's so brilliant. I love it. But I need to know what hours are my VAs working, so that if I have an urgent issue, I can hop online and talk to them. So I know for me that I have various VAs. Some of them are working when I wake up and I start working at 8 a.m. in the morning. I can communicate with them for 2 hours. And then again at 5 p.m. my time at night, I can start communicating with them again. Now, if I get some harebrained scheme to communicate with somebody at like 1 in my afternoon, well, it's 3 in the morning their time. And so I do have like 2 VAs that want to work the night shift, but I have a team of 10 VAs, and most of them are working in the daytime in Filipino time. So it's important for me to have a little calendar at all times where I can be like, hey, if I really need to talk to this person, I can get online and I know that they're going to be there. Or if they're working erratic schedules, like I really don't care. Most of my people have families, and I'm like, hey, work whatever hours you want. You're an independent contractor, just let me know when you're working. And that way we can go back and forth. So I know these things seem pretty basic, but knowing what way you communicate the best and the hours that you're available is really helpful in streamlining, so that you don't feel like you are tied to that person, like, oh, they're working now, I've got to do this, right? Like you can know, like, okay, I can send this to them and they're going to get back to me at this time. Or if I need them online, then I have this window. Okay, so also an accountability system. You're going to want to figure out a way that works for the both of you to provide course correction, as well as to have a system of accountability. So our cultures are very different in how we give feedback, how we receive feedback. One of my points in here on the next slide is going to be to understand the cultural differences. But first and foremost, you need to create a system where sharing feedback and receiving feedback is safe and works for both of you. So whether you're doing it written, or you're hopping on a Zoom chat once a week, or you're just going back and forth on Facebook Messenger, however that is. And then in what way are you delivering that? Is it that you see that something went wrong with something and you're immediately like, hey, this went wrong, I'm just going to be very direct with you and just tell you, and I just need you to fix it. And I kind of set things up that way because I don't want to have any drama. And so I'm just kind of like, hey, like right at the beginning, I tell my VAs, just so you know, I'm pretty direct, and this is my personality. When I tell you that I want something fixed, it has nothing to do with your personality. You're awesome no matter what. And I'm just going to I want to cut down on the time. So I'm going to basically say, here's what I want changed. Here's how I want it. Send it back to me. We're done. Doesn't mean that you're a bad person. I always start by saying that, and you know your personality and you know your strengths, so you would want to just clarify in the beginning how best to handle accountability, course correction, and that kind of stuff, and then build in either say, I'm going to do it on the spot, or we're going to have a performance eval once a quarter, or however you want to do that, so that they know that they're doing a good job or they need to improve, and they know your style, and you guys know what works for you. Okay, so also I talked to you a little bit about using Trello. There's a lot of different project management tools out there. Actually, back in a whole other lifetime ago, I was a project manager in corporate America. And so I know there's so many different tools, and it's like there's the flavor of the week now with all these online tools. I like to use Trello only because it is so simple, easy, and free. So it doesn't cost my VA anything to have it. It doesn't cost me unless I want to, do some power-ups with it. And then it's visual, so people love to look at it. I'll show you a sample in just a minute. And we can do a whole calendar in a month, and we can look at the calendar and see a weekly view or a monthly view. And then we have all of the tasks in what they call cards, and we can communicate in each card in and of itself. And then once it's completed, we get rid of it, put it in another list, and it's off our board. So whatever system you use, I recommend that you try to be organized in your project management. And whether it's just a task list that you're doing in email, you have a way to mark it off so that you're tracking performance. Also, creating calendar, we talked a little bit about scheduling in advance. So creating that monthly calendar. And then what I do is every Friday, I will look at the tasks for the upcoming week, and I'll say, okay, here are the tasks that I know I need to have you do. Again, I like to leave big buckets of time because I always come with these ideas and I'm like, hey, why don't you do this? But for some of my VAs, they're very scheduled and they have like 10 tasks that they're performing all the time. And then I do give them a miscellaneous task list. I'm like, well, if you ever get done with those, then here's your thing in order that you can perform. But I'm telling them, like, basically once a week before their work week starts, here are my priorities for you. Here's what I expect. That way there's clear expectations, and they could come to me and say, you just gave me 3 tasks and I have no idea what they are or how to do them. And then we can resolve that before we go into the work week. And then as the work week goes, I don't have to really spend that much time managing them because they're operating with high performance because they know what they need to do. All right. It's also important to share the priority scope and deadlines for every task. So if you give someone a task and they think they have a month to do it, but they have 3 days because it's urgent, but you didn't tell them, that's always a problem. So the clearer the expectations can be at the outset, the better that is going to be for you and for them, because they'll be able to perform with excellence. And then providing step-by-step instructions. Now, I put in here written and recorded because I realize that all of us leaders operate in such a different way. I am totally a writer. I can write everything in about 5 seconds. Like if you send me a text, you're gonna get a text this big from me because I'm doing it on my computer and I think really fast and I think written. But then like if we're talking to Natalie, we all know Natalie's gonna send an audio text, right? Because she thinks that way. And so some people like to use Marco Polo, or they want to be on Zoom or Skype because they need to see the person and they need to be seeing the body tone and the hand gestures and all that kind of stuff. So whatever way works best for you to share information. And I think Andy's like a really good example. Andy has a VA named Janelle. And Andy does a really good job of doing video instructions. So he doesn't want to write them down step by step. He wants to get on a Loom, record the video, and then just kind of like share what the process is. And it might not be step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It might kind of be all over the place, but it doesn't really matter because what's great is his assistant Janelle has told me that it's really easy for her because he records the videos. She can go back through and she can create a process out of what he has video recorded. And then she can share the process and say, did I get this right? So if you are not a person who likes to write or who thinks step by step, like I do, that's how I do it. So I just give my people their processes and say, here it is written step by step. And that's the way I think.
Jill,
so it works great.
I love what you're hitting on here because it doesn't have to be a project. I think that keeps a lot of people from drawing on a personal assistant. Every big leader that I've talked to that hasn't leveraged their time yet with a personal assistant, that's usually their block. I don't have time to tell them what to do.
Yeah,
and then
and even to know how to tell them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's really important to be that because all of us know what to do and you just figure out the right way to transfer. That you do that before you go to bed.
Yeah.
Like you've got, he's winding down, but instead of like going back to work at 10 p.m. till 1 a.m., which would be our normal, right? He's like, okay, wait, I can pass stuff off to Janelle. Okay, hops on Loom, sends a message, quick message. He just downloads what's in his brain, and she can do all that she can do. And if there's other questions, he answers those in the morning. And we don't feel bad because we have stuff like set up so that they know other things to do if there's downtime.
Right.
People asking what Loom is. It's just a screen capture software. Basically, it's free, and you just start recording. It starts capturing what you're doing on your computer. It creates a link as soon as you're done. So there's none of this like having to record a video, upload it to YouTube. Like there's none of that. It's just one and done.
And I love it because I actually learned about Loom from Janelle, who learned about it from you. So
Nice.
I know. And what I love about like the three of us, honestly, is I feel like each one of us kind of embraces a different approach. Like I'm written, Natalie, I think your audio and sharing and video as well, and Andy, your video. And what I love about that example is that a VA can take it however you deliver it. So you don't need to become this other person. Because I've had people tell me before, well, I'm going to have to become like you, and I'm going to need to learn how to write in step-by-step processes, and I will never have a VA because I don't want to do that. It's like, no. Do it the way that works best for you to communicate.
Mm-hmm. And they'll meet you where you're at, right?
Yeah.
So be you. It's kind of like strengths, right? How we talk about, you can guarantee that you're going to be yourself 100% of the time. Like this is surrendering to that and loving our strengths, however that is, and communicating it. Like if I tried to be you, Jill, I'd be like stopped right then from the amount of text or whatever. But that's super useful that we can all do it anyway, and they get paid to take it whatever way that we deliver it.
Well, and the thing that's really awesome about it is that as you have your VA, let's say that you're doing audio or video, you're not giving them the written step-by-steps, right? It actually is a way to help them learn, because as they translate the process, as they understand it from you, and they put it in a written step-by-step format, not only are they saving your processes so that you can scale, but they're also cementing that knowledge. And then when they check it off with you and you finalize it all together, you triple ensure that you're all on the same page. And then that person's ability to move forward and hit the ground running and perform with excellence, like just skyrocketed. So.
And I think that's really useful that those kind of things can go towards setting up systems. So it's not like, the way we need to think about it is, I'm not doing this a million times. I'm communicating this, then we get a process, and then we're go.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The other things that virtual assistants that they would require, or best steps for maximizing the management of them, is to provide task training. But again, we're just talking about task training made easy by doing it in your own format, right? And then obviously checking their performance. Like I said, I hardly check performance anymore. In the beginning, I checked it more. So I don't want you to think that like, oh, I don't have time to check performance. You're going to want to in the beginning, but then pretty soon you're going to trust, because they're going to perform with such high, excellence or quality, that you're going to be like, oh, I don't really need to check it that much anymore. And it's just, you can just rest assured the job's getting done. And then once a task is mastered, you let them go. We've already talked about that. The other thing is, I think one thing that sort of gets in the way of a VA being able to maximize their job is when they need your input, right? There are going to be times where you need to provide a review, an approval, or feedback on a document. Let's say it's social media or an e-newsletter or an ebook or a meeting invite or follow-up, or something like that, where it's like has your name on it, right? And you want to make sure the grammar's correct, and like that it has your vibe and your design and all that kind of stuff. And then if you drag your feet on getting that review, maybe it's like, oh, that newsletter was supposed to go out on this day, but now it's 2 weeks later and you haven't provided things. So like the quicker you can be about just those little things and just saying, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of time to manage, but I'm going to take a little bit of time to get the feedback. And otherwise, I'm not going to have to worry about all these tasks that are going to get done every single week, then the freer your VA is to help you meet all your targeted deadlines. So there is going to be some involvement from you, but it's going to be limited.
I think that's super important to remember. And I used to think about like, I just don't have time for that. And now I've shifted the way I think about that. Instead, it's like, okay, wait, this is a multiplication of me. And so if I have a break between a call or something like that, I'm not checking my text first. I'm checking that communication first and getting that done, so that then that person that's multiplying me and the good that I can do is off to the races. Awesome. So I think if we can just think about, okay, I'm putting that first instead of the other stuff that we, you know, oh, that's vital, I got to get back to that person or whatever. No, multiply you first, then get back to everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's great. And then so when you're working with someone and you're working in the Philippines, they would be independent contractors, but it would almost be like a contract-based position. So you could say, I want you to work 40 hours a week, but you work your days and your times. Just tell me when you're working. You use your own equipment, all that kind of stuff. But in that same vein, if all of a sudden you have this big project that's going to come and you really need help, and it's going to push them over their 40 hours, you have to think about it like, well, they're contracted with you for a specific amount, but you are paying them by the hour. So you could go to them and say, hey, for this 1 week, I would maybe have 50 hours. Do you want to take those extra hours on? Because they're freelance, they can totally do that. And it's up to them. And in the same way, if they decide they want to take a vacation or something, you're not paying them for those hours. They're not a salaried employee like maybe some of your team members might be. So thinking about that when you think of overtime or time off or anything is an hourly type situation, unless you make a different arrangement with them. But this is how I recommend to operate. And then the last thing is, I just massively went back, is to understand cultural differences. And that's a little easier said than done. There are a lot of different cultural differences. I mean, at the basic level, we're all the same, right? We're human beings. We want to be treated with respect, all those types of things. But there are some differences that are important to know. And I'll go into a little bit what our company does. But one of the things that we do is we do provide cultural training on the side of the VA as well as on the side of the doTERRA leader, so that you both kind of know what to expect in terms of some of the cultural differences. So like, I'll just give you one example. So in the Philippines, the Filipino people are like the nicest people on the planet. They're peacekeepers, and they're very community first oriented people. I would say, I don't want to stereotype ever, but I would just say, like, after living there and working with people there for a long time, this is what I've come to notice. Where that can kind of be different in terms of cultural, not that we're not nice or community focused, but the definitions of some things can get kind of a little bit different. So we had one of our VAs last week go into the hospital with a blood vessel, like rupturing blood vessel on his lung, right? Like, big issue. And he didn't want to be a burden. So this goes into the like really nice peacekeeper. I don't want to be a problem for you. So he didn't tell us he was in the hospital. And of course he can work his own hours. So we were just like, whatever, like, he's working, that's fine, or he's not, and he'll make up the hours, or, you know, whatever. Well, on Wednesday, we're kind of like, that's weird that he hasn't really shown up to work. And we had a deadline on Wednesday. We didn't know this big thing was happening in the hospital. He hadn't told us. And then there was a line that was crossed, right? Now he's in a position where he can't tell us. So it starts off, and I don't want to say everybody's like this. This is just an example of how a cultural difference can go into where you really need to understand each other in the beginning. And we had to go back and be like, hey, you are always safe to tell us the minute a challenge happens. Like, be solutions oriented and don't bring a problem and drop it in our laps. But going to the hospital is not a burden for us. Like, we need to know that you're there. We care about you. We have compassion for you. We'll find other people to take your spot, or you can find someone to take your spot. You're not going to lose your job. Everything's fine. So that is a cultural difference that I've noticed a couple of times, where kind of like that nice, like not wanting to be a problem, not wanting to be a burden, wanting to take care of their own problems, is like a cultural thing that all of a sudden can cross a line at some points. Now, it doesn't hardly ever, but in this circumstance, it was like an emergency situation. So you want to know about those types of things, because if something like that happens, like what just happened with this VA, I already knew, oh, he's not trying to be a problem. He was actually trying to be kind. And so then I can approach the situation and say, oh my gosh, what can we do for you? And then we just stepped in and we like figured something out in a workaround. It was no big deal. And then what we were able to say to him is, in the future, please bring us this problem, right? And then he feels safe coming to us because he knows this is our culture that we need to know up front so that we can plan for deadlines and things like that. Anyway, I won't go into detail about all the cultural differences. And I don't want to say that every single person has these specific things so that we don't stereotype, but it's good to know what some of the differences are between the cultures up front, so that as you're managing your VA, you know what's expected, or you know, maybe if they're saying yes, they don't actually mean yes, maybe they mean no. Little things like that that you would want to know. Okay, so now we're in between how to best manage a VA and now how to find a VA. So I would just like to open it up, and if anybody has questions on like finding and working with us for sourcing your VA and getting a VA trained in doTERRA, that's going to be this next part. So if you have questions about that, let's hold those questions. But if you have any questions about how to maximize working with a VA, maybe you're working with one right now and you have a question about that, I would love to just take a few minutes of questions. Does anybody have questions right now, or you want to move on to part 2?
Yeah, just unmute, ask your question, or drop it in the chat.
Mandy's asking, what's the best way to pay them?
Oh, so in the Philippines, I actually use a service called TransferWise. There's a couple of other ones that are okay. I was using PayPal before, and it was robbing my VAs blind with the fees. So I don't want to like talk trash about anything. I love PayPal. I use it in the United States all the time. I use Venmo. But for what I have found after a lot of research is that TransferWise works the best for me and for the VAs that I work with, as it has the lowest amount of fees. In the beginning, it can be a little bit tricky to set up, as with any other financially related app, but it is available on your phone and on your desktop. And I pay once monthly based on the hours that they work. And I have them track their time to the 15 minutes using an online time tracking counter, and then put it into a spreadsheet for me, and then send me an invoice. I look at the invoice, and if I want to double check any hours, I'll look at their time tracking to see exactly where the time was spent. And then we just send a payment out on the 12th of every single month for the month prior. I do my cutoff dates. They start on the 9th, and then they send me an invoice on the 8th, and then I initiate payment on the 12th. So the first payment takes a little while, and after that, the transfers go through almost immediately.
Awesome.
Does that help?
Yeah. Nicole would love to know the scope of tasks a VA can do.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to talk about that in part 2. Is that okay if we wait?
Yeah, just roll to that.
Okay. Is that the last question, or do we have any more?
Yep. Let's go to part 2.
Okay, cool. So first of all, we started this business because like I said, I have a lot of VAs, and so we were looking to outsource some of them. I didn't need quite as many. And then what I found is my upline leader, Kelly King Anderson, put a note on Facebook, and then all of a sudden I started getting all these calls, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a real need here. I wasn't anticipating that. And so because we have such an extensive network in the Philippines, I have a business partner over there, and I'm growing over there, and I just got back from living there for 6 months. We're like, oh, we can help out doTERRA leaders. This would be amazing. So the process that we follow with our business is, first of all, we would have a consulting call with you. Well, we have you fill out a form. I didn't put that in our process, but you fill out a form, you kind of identify what your basic needs are. And then I have a consulting call with you, like one-on-one, to identify what your tasks are specifically. So I kind of do what my sales consultant did for me, and just identify like, what's on your plate right now? What's going on? Because sometimes we can't identify the things on our own plates that need to go. Some people are really good at that, And then some of us, like myself, back 6 years ago, I had no idea. And so we want to have that call to just figure out like, okay, what are the things that you need? Do you already have a VA or a personal assistant? Like, I just want to know like the whole situation with you so that I can best help you. And then after that, we find source and vet a VA in the Philippines. Now, we are not a VA matching company. And so that's different than a traditional staffing agency. I've gone through traditional staffing agencies before, and I'll spend all my time in interviewing processes and all of that kind of stuff. All of our VAs are trained on the same processes, the same tasks, the same deliverables. So any VA that you get really should work for you. So if you are really particular about personality, then we can make an exception for that and we can have you talk to a couple of different people. But otherwise, we don't really find that has been an issue. So that's not a big thing that we focus on. So we will find source and vet the VA, and then we'll let you know who you're going to get. Sometimes we have VAs ranging from $5 to $10 an hour. And that's all based on their experience, expertise, time being a VA, college graduate, those types of things. So if you're like, yeah, I kind of want a more seasoned one, or I want a part-time one, or I have to have somebody at $5 an hour, that's going to also dictate who we would get for you. And then what we do is we put that person through a 30-day onboarding training certification. That's what we call it. And we have a whole Trello training project schedule that we share you on and your VA, and we keep us all in the loop through the entire training process, but we're really training them. So you don't need, the only thing that we need from you are some reviews and approvals, and I'll talk to you about that in a second. But really, you can see at any moment what your VA, who is in the training process, is learning and doing on your behalf those first 30 days, but you be responsible.
What I love about this, guys, is you know how we feel like we don't have time to train. Like Jill has all of this organized, and I don't have the brain, you know, that bandwidth to do that. So just leveraging that, this is another way to leverage. We hired another VA company that Haley Hobson referred us to. And we hired someone, the cost was like, we were paying $25 an hour out the door, or maybe higher than that. It was high to even start out with before she was even trained. And then if we wanted to hire her, we had to pay a huge, kind of own her and bring her across from the VA company. So I think we were paying her 25, and then we had to pay the VA company 15. So I hope you can see like the value that's right here, because we literally were paying $40 an hour thinking we were going to get all this great support. And we found better support right here with Jill, just because she knows what's going on.
I'm so glad. And I'll point one thing out here. I'm going to talk about cost in a minute. But when I say that the VAs are $5 to $10 an hour, when you pay the VA, all of the money goes to the VA minus the fee of your payment system, right? TransferWise or whatever. So when I've used staffing agencies in the past, I've been charged like, let's say $15 an hour for the VA, and the VA gets $2 and the staffing agency gets the rest. And I just didn't feel like that was fair to our wonderful friends in the Philippines who work so hard and need to provide for their families. So I wanted to charge just an upfront fee to train them, which I'll talk about in a second. And then every cent that you give them every month goes directly to them. It's just between you and that VA. So in that way, we're helping these people in the Philippines get fair wages. So, okay, the next part. So we're doing the onboarding training. Again, you have access to all of the training that we're doing. And then our training approach is on the job. So even though they're coming with basic skills because they've been VAs before, they're not brand new. But the thing that's new to them is doTERRA. Maybe some of them are in doTERRA, but most of them are not. And so they're new to the back office. They're new to the acronyms. They're new to like all of the reports and everything. And so what we're doing, and the content even, so what we're doing is as we are either teaching or practicing, I say practicing because some of the steps we're not teaching them because they know how to do a spreadsheet or they know how to do social media or whatever. But now we're going to be teaching or practicing a task, but we're going to be doing it in the environment of doTERRA. And that's why you're going to be getting deliverables at the end of their training period because every task that they're learning using your business. So they would be creating an email marketing campaign for you, a text marketing campaign for you. They would be creating a master tracking spreadsheet, which I can go into more detail about later, with a ton of data. Think of it like a detailed genealogy, but on steroids, and it doesn't go away after 3 months. You get to keep your data forever. And like all sorts of things like that, that they're going to be producing for you to help streamline and make your business more effective, but also help you to be able to have information to take action. So like, for example, just one thing that we do is on the middle of every month, about the 11th, we identify who has subscribed for LRP that hasn't already placed their order. And then we send out a custom text just to those people that says, hey, friendly reminder, you can get balance free this month. I can't remember if balance is a promo of the month, product of the month in the US or the Philippines. Anyway, so whatever the product of the month is, here's a product of the month, here's the monthly offers, just want to make sure you have 3 days to do this or whatever. And it's just, they're tasks that they identify for you on a regular basis so that you don't leave money on the table, that you're regularly taking action. We have a rank tracker, we have a power of 3, we have the marketing campaign schedule, those types of things. That's what they're going to be creating and delivering for you, unless you want them to do something different. You don't have to have them do all the tasks we train them on. All right, then after we train them and we say, okay, you guys are good, you're certified. And by the way, we are providing high oversight and course correction all the way through the 30 days. So it's not like we're just giving them videos, letting them train themselves, and then giving them to you. They are getting trained, performing tasks. We're reviewing the tasks, saying that they're good to go, so they're certified. And then we have a transition call. This call is usually about 2 hours, where we go through all the deliverables that we've created so that you know what they're used for, and that you know on a monthly or weekly, daily, weekly, monthly basis what these regular tasks are that your VA can perform for you. And we talk about, okay, here's what month 2 could look like. And we have created actually a 6-week calendar so that for the 6 weeks after you inherit your VA, now you've got your VA and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? You don't have to worry about, okay, those first 30 days were amazing because someone else was training and managing and tracking and providing course correction. Now what do I do? We're going to give you and set you up with that whole 6-week calendar. And not only that, but we're going to have you in a private Facebook group this entire time with all the other doTERRA leaders that are going through the onboarding process at the same time as you, so that, and you're with the doTERRA leaders, not with the other VAs. This is where you can ask questions. You can say, I've got this process and I don't know how to explain it. And I'm like, okay, I'll help you come up with the process. And also you walk away with the whole library of step-by-step instructions for all of the processes that we trained your VA on. So I don't really care to keep all that information proprietary. I only ask that you just use it with that VA. So I ask that you not then go and share it with all of the leaders in your downline, right? Because that's what the fee is for up front. But I want you to have it so that at any point, if you're like, okay, now what is the process that they're following to be able to do X, Y, or Z step? You can go in and look at the process. We've got it video, step-by-step in written, and we're just going to give you that process library. And then as your VA creates new processes for jobs that you want them to do, they will just add that to your process library. And it's sort of like a little procedure manual that you'll have for your business forevermore moving forward. All right, we are about out of time. So I just want to explain 2 things really quick: investment and benefits. So the way this works is that we require a $9.97 upfront fee. That's for the 30 days of training and to find, source, and vet your VA. But for July, we're doing a 50% off, so it's $4.99. And in August, we're doing $250 off. These are approximates, by the way, but it's like $750. Those are the upfront one-time fee. And then you have a monthly VA fee on the 12th of every month that begins the month after. So it's like if your 30 days ends like on the 10th, you pay the VA on the 12th or whatever. So it's at the end of those first 30 days, you pay the VA. And it's between $800 and $1,300 a month based on the hourly rate, which is between $5 and $10 an hour. And then also that Facebook fee. The first month is free to participate in our Facebook, but we do require Facebook participation because that's where we like to streamline all of our communication and training and everything. We can all learn from each other and learn new processes and stuff. And that's $49 a month. Or if you want to pay just a one-time flat fee, that is $250 for the 6 months. So the first month is free, and then the next 6 months are required, and a 7-month contract is required, or you could do a longer contract if you want. Now, the benefits, and I want to switch over here super fast. We only have like 1 second.
You're fine. And Jill, maybe those that are on the call, are you okay if she goes over just a few minutes so we can cover this all the way? Victoria's asking, is there a minimum monthly hour?
We really try to keep people to part-time or full-time. Just because these are their jobs and they're not really looking to do like 3-5 hours. So most of them prefer 40 hours a week. That's like our biggest pool wants 40 hours. But let's say that you're like, you know what, I just really want 20, then we can find part-time people. And another thing is, if you don't mind sharing a VA with another doTERRA leader, again, the information would be totally confidential, right? Then that person could be working on 2 different doTERRA leaders, one in, like, let's say the morning and one in the afternoon, or whatever their hours are, and keeping it totally separate. So that's up to, you know, it could either be a part-time person that's only wanting to work part-time, or we could take a full-time person and split it between 2 leaders. So I would say other hours than that, we're not really set up to do that with these VAs. And also for specialists, just people always ask this question next after that question, Victoria. If people want, like, I only want someone to do social media, or I only want someone to do film or podcast or whatever, those are higher paid people and they would be done by project. So you bid it out, unless you're like, I'm going to do a podcast once weekly or a YouTube video every day or whatever, then all of a sudden those are regular hours. Does that answer your question? So
I think that's
if you
great.
go over to this landing page, and the link was on the slide presentation, but you can get there. I'm going to drop this in the chat.
Great.
Which I'm all of a sudden not seeing.
So guys, I want you to know, like, some of the stuff we've taken a little time to get this right. Like, we've dialed in the power of 3 to 50, and some of these like tasks that are just like, or power of 3, you know, overall. The marketing, so that we actually market. Like, you know, when doTERRA started doing great marketing, we stopped doing a newsletter and right? So those are some key things that I think them already investing in has made a huge difference for us, just having it set up.
So Natalie, I don't know why I'm just not able to share that. I just
You are great.
you the link, if you could put it in the chat.
I'll share it. You bet.
So this is our landing page, and at the very bottom, it just highlights the basic benefits, the deliverables, and the task training. If you've got really specific things that you need, and we know how to do it, we could maybe add on a week of training or something. We could get custom with you. So I don't want you to feel like, wait, I don't see what I need here. But by far and large, those 30 days, we're putting everybody through this training. And again, it's very like highly custom doTERRA. So Natalie, what were you going to say?
No, you got it. It's there, and the link's in the chat.
Yeah. And I know, like, when you look at some of this, you're going to be like, I'm not doing bot marketing. I'm not doing text marketing. I don't care about that. So just the thing is that a lot of people are adding things on as they hear about new services, or as they find out that they don't have to answer all their FAQs every time, that a bot can do it for them. They get really excited about this new technology, right? These new platforms. So what we want to do is just give your VA the basic training that they either need from the get-go that you would want them to do, or things that are like on the cusp, really up and coming, that could really help you, that if you decide to take advantage of, is going to put you leagues ahead. We want to give them that training so that they're ready to go should you decide to move forward, but you don't necessarily have to do it. So let's say that we train them on text and bot marketing and you're like, forget it. Like I can barely do email. Totally fine. But just know that if you ever make that decision, they've had a basic introduction to that. So we do include it. It's not like a huge portion of the training, but when you look at this list and, you know, like you kind of go down the list, this is like the stuff that you can count on them knowing when they start. Now, somebody was asking a question and I said, I'll talk about it in a minute. And now I'm forgetting what that question was.
I think you hit on it. Victoria's saying, is there ongoing training for them as new things come out?
So there wouldn't be ongoing training that we would provide unless you would hire us, which we would be totally happy to do. So because that one-time upfront fee covers that first 30 days. But what we do is in the private Facebook group, let's say that you come to us and you're like, I really need to figure out this process for whatever. We can brainstorm with you and help you as long as it doesn't require like hours and hours and hours of research. But we would always consult out if you wanted to hire us. Does that answer that? So yes and no.
I think that's great. And, you know, Jill, you communicate with all of your VAs. So if there was some new thing at doTERRA, you know,
yeah,
like, and one of us shared that document or a document was created, then they would have access to something like that, right?
Yeah, so like one of the things I'm doing right now, I've come across, and I'm not pitching this, but I just want to tell you guys as an example. So I've come across this really cool tool called Shout, and that is a tool that is for text and bot marketing. And I just think it's so amazing to be able to do like an entire welcome and onboarding process in the palm of your hand that I'm like all over it, so excited. So let's say the cool thing about Shout, as with Trello and Wavoto and like some other tools, is that the content can be shareable. Not all tools make their content shareable. So for scaling your business, shareable content is the bomb, right? Like, I mean, if all you have to do is send a link to your downline leaders and they have all of your content, I mean, content takes so much time to create. So that's just genius. So what we want to do is, well, we're already doing it. We've formed a partnership with Shout, and I'm creating a bunch of custom doTERRA content. I have a marketing background, so I'm creating like more marketing content in Shout. And then because it's shareable, any of my clients, they can sign up using my link for Shout, and I'm automatically going to give them any template I ever create. Because why do I want to hoard that, right? And then if you want to share that, if you get your downline leaders on Shout, you can also share that with them. And so now we can't do it with everything because not every tool makes their content shareable. But I think, Natalie, that goes just an example to what you're saying. If we have content, we're always going to share it. I want everybody to succeed, right? Like we're very abundant. We're not competing, even though we're all like doTERRA wellness advocates. We want to lift each other up. Mm-hmm. So any type of content that we would create, if we find a really successful, oh, this really, really works for email marketing, this is getting really high open rates, I would share the format. And you know what? Let's just get it out. We all have different teams. They're not going to see each other's newsletters, right?
I love that you just feel that way, because a lot of people in our world don't feel that way anymore. They try and just like hold on, right, in that scarcity mentality. But working with Jill,
I mean, everyone can customize a template. So if I share a template, it might be perfect for me, and you might look at it and be like, I hate it, but at least it's the first draft.
Yeah.
You didn't have to write the first draft. So you customize it, make it your own, and now it's your own proprietary thing, and great. You're off to the races. You didn't have to create
Jill, take a look at Victoria's question in the chat. And while I tell the rest of you really quick, we're going to wrap in like 3 minutes. But I wanted you to know that, like,
wow.
This just
I couldn't see the chat before, and now all of a sudden there's like this little chat.
It's great. So this kind of shows what we have. And by the way, I just wrote this thing over in the left column in. And the VA is kind of identifying, okay, this is my notes, this is what I need from the team or whatever. So she's checking on priorities every day. She's creating an FAQ that I have never done, you know. She's answering comments on Instagram and these Facebook pages that I'm having her check with. If she doesn't know something, she's hitting us, but anything that she can just, you know, thumbs up on, love on, she's bringing that. She's posting stuff that we are, you know, we've put together ideas, and our social media stuff, we're putting together ideas, but then she's setting that up. We're into templates that we've made, so that's really easy. And she's, for example, we have a call that we do every week, and she's uploading that, and that's easy for her to do.
Natalie, I want to say something here, because if you look at column C, this is a really good example of where Janelle, excuse me, listened to Andy's or watched Andy's Loom video, and then she documented the process. So then Andy could come here, or Sharon, and basically like look at this and say, oh no, you got the process wrong. That's not what I meant on Loom. I was just kidding. I was going to bed and I was tired. Or they can say, oh, you totally nailed this process. Yes, move forward, do this every week.
Just the fact that she wrote down everything that Andy sent over, we've never had that done before, right? And even then, if she has a baby or, you know, whatever happens in life, we have this to just start with someone and be that far ahead on, right? So that is the direction on keeping our website updated. How about sending out success coaching reminders, you know, just text reminders. She's helping us send a video. So we make a video every month. We focus on the things that only we can do. And then she's helping us get that out to our customers. How about recognition?
And Natalie, can I just share really quick? Back where you're talking about chirp, because I was going through this with Janelle, and I was okay, so, you know, we need to highlight where you don't know how to do something, because there's all these tasks in here. So she highlighted, like, I don't know chirp. So in column D, she's like, hey, you guys, I need training on chirp. But the cool thing about this is that you, Andy, and Sharon can go through this. You can look for the highlighted, then you look in column D for the notes. You just perform those tasks. And then at the end of the day, you're like, oh my gosh, everything that we've just assigned to her, in addition to the stuff that she's already been trained on, she's already doing regularly for you, is now going to be done. And you know she's performing with excellence because the process is right here.
That is worth $1 million, my friends. It's worth a lot more than what, because anything you can do to multiply you and the experience that you have and keep your energy where you need it to be. Even it was great to have our little intro call with Jill and her to be, what else can you pass off? And I just need somebody asking me that question every once in a while, like right here. And I don't feel any pressure about it, but it's really helped me to go, oh, okay, I don't need to do any tracking on Power of 3 or month end. Like, how many of you are still tracking all of that? So month end, I'm not tracking anymore. We used to be watching that, you know, on the 15th and then the last 3 days of the month, and Andy's doing that. It's just not a wise investment of our time. So all of these things have kind of come together. We're having her put our prospects into a text thing. And a lot of our stuff that was happening through Chirp will now be happening through Shout. And we're just transitioning over. But just so you can see some of the things that we've outsourced. And what
Natalie, I think one of the things you brought up to me before and that we worked on in when we met that I thought was really brilliant for any of those of you who have personal assistants or another VA that's local. What we also did was we sat down and we looked at Sharon, Natalie, your assistant, her task list. And it was like, okay, here's everything that Sharon's doing. And I'm like, whoa, 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 let's get like half of that stuff off of Sharon's list and give it to Janelle. So if you've got someone that is here that's doing this local stuff for you that you need more time with, it may be that your personal assistant or your virtual assistant here in the United States could offload some of their stuff to a remote offshore worker in the Philippines. And that way, that person is doing, you know, like just you've got as much of that sort of, I don't want to say lower level tasks because they're so important. I don't want to make it sound like they're not important tasks, but those important lower level tasks that can be offloaded to a VA, right? In the Philippines, everything that they possibly can do is being done by them. So just to give you a really quick example, I started with one VA and I was like, I will never have enough tasks for that person 40 hours a week, but I bit the bullet and did it. And then 5 years later, I had 10 VAs because I just was like, I don't want to do anything that I don't have to do. And I don't want my highly paid people to do anything they don't have to do. So you got to start thinking, start where you're at with just yourself. But then also after that, what can I get rid of for my personal assistant that they don't need to be doing anymore? And then all of a sudden you have that personal assistant start doing higher level tasks because they're paid higher. Anyway, I just thought I'd point that out.
Yeah. And for those of you that have somebody here and, you know, maybe they're doing stuff for you that you want done, taking stuff to the mail or whatever. Like, it seems like there's always other things that I could pass off, but that kind of helper doesn't have more time or energy. So that's where we've added in the VA and it's been a great combo. So mix it up. So Victoria's saying, what if the person just bombs or quits? Is there a guarantee or do we have to pay it all again?
Yeah. You know what? I actually am working that out right now. I'm talking to my lawyer about that. And I'm thinking about, because I've had that situation happen to me and it hasn't been awesome. So I'm trying to figure out like the best scenario to do that. But I'm a really fair person. And I mean, maybe I'll talk to a few of you guys and just see what you feel is fair, because I don't think that you should have to pay to start from scratch. Right. But I also don't think that we should have to lose out from training from scratch. So I'm figuring that piece out. Sorry, I just am telling you what I don't know right now.
No, that's great. And I think what we have seen is that Jill filters. And so I think, you know, you wouldn't have, I mean, your percentage of how many people have bombed or quit midstream is.
I mean, I have VAs that I've had for 6 years. Right? They need jobs. But I also, when I was with another staffing agency where I was getting my VAs from, and I had to have a year-long contract, and like you were saying, Natalie, I had to pay if I wanted to hire him directly. It was really tough when someone quit. There's this girl, I was grooming her to be this perfect position. She was amazing. She just, oh my gosh, I loved her so much. And I just was so sad when she didn't want to work for that company anymore, but then I couldn't hire her. So, you know, it happened and I've been through it. But what they did for me was they just automatically provided me a new person. But I want to make sure that you would get a new person who is also really well trained. And then there is just that sadness of ever losing someone, right? And this could happen with an employee or a VA or an independent contractor, whoever. That they're like, I'm not going to stay anymore. So I got to figure that out.
We've had really good experience so far. And I would say, you know, you've worked with Brianna Hess, you're working with other people that they've had good experiences too. Kelly Anderson, like, so I think we could work it out if that came up.
Well, and I have to say that with Kelly, what I had done with Kelly is I gave Kelly one VA and we were sort of sharing this girl. And then I said, just kidding, I want her back. So that was sort of rude of me. I didn't mean to. But then we said,
she is your upline, so I think it's okay to do that, right? When you're like, I need her to build my business.
I'm so sorry, I can't actually deal without her. And then I knew what Kelly needed, and I know Kelly's personality. And even if but we get to know each other as clients, right? Like we'll be working together, so it's not like I wouldn't know you either. And then I found someone, and I took really good care to find somebody who could come in. And Kelly is like, she just didn't skip a beat. And we put that person right in, and they started working for her and doing all the things. And not only were they going through our training process at the same time, but they were also doing her other tasks at the same time. So she didn't feel like she was missing out because this person now needed to get more training.
Right.
So that felt like a really good scenario. I would just want to make sure that could work every time, because that was a really great,
that's awesome.
It worked out.
Tell us a little bit more about Shout. What platforms does it work on? Oh, and a link. Sharon, maybe share the link for us.
I will.
does Jill
There's a,
does it
there's
work
a
on
specific, let me get in my,
mobile?
let me get in my dashboard and share the link because it's a specific link.
Okay. Oh, great. What platforms does Shout work on? Mobile, websites, email, etc. Can it work on WhatsApp?
So Shout is its own app. So it's not a system like that, like what you're thinking. So basically, when you sign up for Shout, you get one or two, depending on what service you sign up for, text phone numbers that are used for text only. It would be most comparable, although it's not the same as Project Broadcast, if you guys know about Project Broadcast. But the difference between it and Project Broadcast, among many other things, is that Shout is not just a text marketing platform. It also does bot marketing. So if anybody would like to see a demo on their phone or on their computer or both, I can show you both a text demo and I can show you like a sample onboarding process done via Shout through the Shout inbox. Just, I would need your email address and your phone number. This won't really sign you up for anything unless you decide to, but at least it would show you
the process. So just drop your email and phone number in if you want to see how Shout works. But the cool thing about Shout is that it's responsive. So before we would send out like text blast, right? That's just going out there. But what I loved about Shout is you can ask a question. They're like, hey, do you have any questions about using your product right now? And they get to 1 for yes, 2 for no, you know? Like, could you send something that simple out to your customers? And I think that's...
So what I'm using Shout for, why I got really excited about it is I am just now going to start growing in the United States. My entire team is in the Philippines. And so I can't do text marketing with them from anywhere, not even really from the Philippines. I had such problems with my phone. Anyway, so I wanted to get an app that was similar to Facebook Messenger, but where I could keep my own data. Because Facebook always decides what it wants to do with algorithms and it keeps your data. I love Facebook, but I don't love it for my CRM because it doesn't give me my own data. So Shout is like a messenger service like Viber or WhatsApp or GChat. Think of any messenger app, a chat feature, and they call it Shout to Shout. So let's say I'm on Shout and Natalie's on Shout. We can either use it on our phone or have it on our desktop where we're literally just communicating via Shout and it's free. So I'm getting all of my Filipino team on Shout. There are some differences, like they can't see pictures, whereas in the United States, we can see pictures. So I don't love that, but their cell phone coverage is just not as advanced as in the US and Canada. And so and Europe, right? So for Shout in the nations that have like advanced cell service, you're going to be able to see what you guys see if you see the text that I send you via Shout, not a text, the message. But it's really awesome. I just got excited about it for onboarding because I've struggled with onboarding my Filipino team.
Yeah.
And they don't really use email very much. They only want to use Facebook Messenger. But I want to have a place where I can send texts, inbox messages, and have all of my contact data stored in the same place. Now, they are going to be adding email integration within a year, but it's not an email service provider. So just to be really clear about that. It will integrate with different services. I'm not sure which ones, but that's what I wish it had right now that it doesn't have, but that's going to be like a year down the road. So I'm happy to send anyone a test if they want to see it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and probably blocked in China, Victoria, for sure, I would think. I can ask them about it, but I'm guessing that China would block it. Yeah, but I'm happy to do like a separate thing for Shout if anybody's interested and not talk so long. But the best way to experience Shout really is to experience a campaign. So again, if you want to experience it, just give me your phone number, your cell phone number, and your email address. And so just so you know, the text will just be like a basic campaign, like LRP, whatever. And you'll get it as if, I'll send you like a little introduction. But the Shout overview that I would give you is actually as if you're going through an onboarding process and you're a new enrollee for me. It's just showing you what that could look like, but just PS, it is totally rough draft copy. So it's not meant to be a real onboarding process, but it'll show you what that can look like. It's pretty exciting.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
I am so grateful that you brought so much of this goodness forward. It's been a long time. Like, we have used assistants throughout our whole history in doTERRA, but we have dialed in on something here that I think is really, really valuable. So I'm so grateful for your skills, for your connections, for sharing. Amazing, right? So Jill, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
So let me just, it's just doTERRA Jill, but I'll put it here. My name is spelled J-Y-L, so that's a little different. But you can also find me there or on social media. I am like on Instagram. That's my personal Instagram. So for Facebook, if you want to connect with me and PM with me, I have 2 different accounts, so I'm putting my Facebook link. One of my accounts is for the Philippines. So this one is my US Facebook. So, so there's my email, my phone number, my Facebook, and then my Instagram is @MomItForward. That is my other business.
Sweet.
So
Sweet.
Yeah, you guys feel free to reach out to me at any point. I'm happy to help. I really want to help doTERRA leaders scale, maximize their business, make more money, and impact everybody in their downlines. So let me know if I can help you. We do only take 20 people a month. So that's one other thing, is that we really try to provide the custom training. We want to make sure we leave time for the oversight and the course correction and those types of things. So, so for at least the next few months, we're only taking 20. And again, for July and August, I do have that special going. And after that, it's going to bump up and will be $9.97. So let me know if you want to move on this. And I am happy to have a consultation call with you so we can discover what your needs are and we can help you meet them.
Awesome,
Thanks.
Jill. It's been so awesome. We are turning up our income, and I didn't think that was possible just through some of these processes. So thanks for bringing it. Yeah, I know. I hope you guys take advantage of that.
Yay, Victoria.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, back to work, and hopefully you're doing less work, my friends. You're incredible diamonds, you're incredible creators. Make sure you leverage you, because you are your most valuable asset. Take care of you, get those pipes, get that summer relaxation, whatever you need. But let's get these things so you can go up level your business and create even more value than you have before. Lots of love. Happy July.